Tell us about your first rehearsal, that 7 o'clock in the evening when you were invited to the empty studio with George Balanchine and his pianist.
John Coleman was the pianist. And so we did, I came in and Balanchine started just the walking.
From the corner?
From the corner. And we got through really quite a lot, actually. All through all of this and into the arabesque and on. And actually, I think we even got that, I'm pretty sure that night we got even up to here, where I pick up the foot. And then he said, well, that's it. And John Coleman, who at the piano said, oh, but there's still quite a bit more to go. And he said, well, in time, but this is enough for now.
And how did that music strike you, Hindemith, after working with the Ballet Imperial, Tchaikovsky, and Symphony Concertanas, Mozart? Did Hindemith's music, did he say to you, this is a piece of music I commissioned, this is a modern composer, or he said nothing about the music?
But you know, I tell you, there's one thing rather interesting about that piece of music, because I don't think it was commissioned to do Four Temperaments. I think it was commissioned to do something much earlier, which was for the tour of South America. And it was to be called Cave of Sleep. And I remember his working with Margie Moore on one of the sections, which I don't remember any longer, but before we went to South America, in which he, Margie did a extremely torturous variation, very much in the modern dance vein. And she was on the floor, and Margie had a marvelous long body, wonderful legs, and very capable of doing.
This was 1941.
Yeah. And so I thought this was going to be one of the ballets that was going to South America with us. And apparently he scratched the whole thing. We never heard of Cave of Sleep again. And the costumes were very elaborate for that. I remember seeing sketches for that. But then that was the first time I'd heard any other part of the music. I had no idea what the music.
Do you remember which part it was?
I don't know what the part she was doing. I really don't remember.
Okay. But your first rehearsal then, he said, did he mention Hindemith at all, or he just said?
Well, I knew from the piano score that it was Hindemith.
And no, was there no section name? There was the word phlegmatic was not mentioned at all?
I think he mentioned it, but it wasn't anything that was overly exposed. The next time we got together, there were 4 girls.
The 6-footers, as you described them at one point? 6 foot on point, I presume?
6 foot, well, no. They were all 6 feet.
I see.
I think the shortest one was Una Kai. And Una's, what, 5'8" or something like that. So they were called the Giants in the company.
Was the sense of phlegmatic mentioned then, during this further rehearsal? Much, I mean? Not
much. He never really ever went into any detail about that sort of thing with his dancers. Rarely. Usually, you see, that's one of the things, like, for example, when I said, can you tell me something, a little bit of what maybe might help me a little bit more? He said, no, just dance. Just do the steps.
You mentioned being, or remarking to yourself on the modernist way he was working on Cave of the Sleep. Did it strike you that you were in something more modernist than classical when you were starting the phlegmatic?
I accepted that movement as part of the way his choreography, because he had a very broad scope.
Well, when you went out a lot, you mentioned in one of your reminiscences, to coffee with him and Bill Dollar to Sammy's and so on. Did he say much about modern dance? Did he say it interested him, or he could do it better, or what is your understanding of his feelings toward modern dance in 1945, 6?
Well, I think that he recognized it as a very valid source of movement. I think that much of what he saw he felt was not very interesting. I think he liked Martha Graham's things. I think he thought they were very interesting. But I can't remember I don't remember him being negative about it.
Did he say anything that he was responding to in you because you had some modern training?
No.
No. He liked your ballet schooling from School of American Ballet.
No, the only I think I don't. I was mentioning this about when he did Unanswered Question, exactly. All through that, I was the man who was moving around underneath her, the one longing for this girl. And there was only one point in which he said to me something. It was first, sort of carte blanche. I was on the floor, and he said, now, at this point, he was standing right over me like this. He said, now, at this point, I want you to writhe all over the place, just writhe. So it was up to me. And so I did all my writhing on the floor, and that was that moment. He never said anything about it. He just said it was good, bad, or indifferent. He just said, okay, that's fine.
You mentioned in one of the reminiscences, too, that Balanchine would make themes in his classes, and sometimes he would even concentrate on runs.
Oh, yeah.
And not many ballet teachers you felt did.
Yes.
Now, there are runs in Phlegmatic. What did Balanchine say about runs in class, or what was his interest in them?
Oh, it was because actually it was really wonderful, all those classes on running, because it was the dynamic. You know, how to run so that you could run and stop, or you could have a constant kind of running that was building in velocity or in tension, and using the run as an emotional kind of action of dance, and that in between variation, when a boy will do a combination, and he finishes, say, going across the stage, and he has to run around. The run has to maintain the same dance quality that has, and not just sort of getting there, but it has to have the movement of dance has to be part of that. So the carriage of the body.
Was it surprising to you that this dance was introspective? As you said to Albert at one point, you're not to the public now, it's more interior. Was that unusual to you, to be doing a dance that was introspective or interior?
No, because I felt that much of Balanchine's work has a great deal of theater in it.
But I mean the interior side.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so you didn't.
Well, even though he never mentioned it to me, I always felt that's what he wants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the few things he said to you was the one hand gesture is as if you're asking. You said unctuous.
Yes, he said it'd be very. He didn't use the word unctuous. I can't remember what. I think it was just in demonstrating.
I see.
It was as though you were almost. I don't remember a word, but I do remember his description in movement was sufficient.
And the thing about being polite, speaking as if being polite, is that your image or his? You said at one point to Albert, it's as if you're speaking and you're being very polite. Is that something that, your way of putting it in words?
It may have been my way of putting it, because I think you understand that he never said anything to me ever. And so I had to deduce from the movement, I had to make it what I thought fit the movement. The point of view that would fit the movement, or how to keep it so that it was a really objectively projecting into the movement.
Well, that first entrance, when you say, as if you're reaching, did he not say reach?
Oh, yes.
Oh, he did say reach for something.
Yes.
And then when he said that thing about being frightened, that was definitely...
Definitely. He said that too. Because the girls were doing, you know, very relaxed kind of movements. He said, no, 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 as though you're frightened. Really pull back as though you're frightened.
Now let's talk about arms when they're classical or not throughout that piece. Sometimes the arms are specifically not classical, and sometimes they are.
Yeah.
Is that something that you see in what you did, or did he ever say that? Do be classical here, don't be classical here?
I don't think he ever really said it. I would follow what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And his arm, he was a wonderful dancer. And his arms were fabulous when, you know, the way he could make them lyric, make them such a part of dance. Mm-hmm. That, and it was quite an eye-opener for me because males at that time tended to be rather static in their arm movements. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, even in class, he would work with us at length about port-de-bras. One of the things that he used to say to us always, often, I should say, rather than he implied it always, that whatever you did, no matter whether it was the softest kind of adagio or the biggest bravura kind of movement, that you had to dance with your full body. You had to dance with full movement always. Everything had to be there. And I think that this is a quality that dancers don't often have in their dance. They have lapses often between, or they walk from one place to another. With Balanchine, it was all dance. You must dance constantly.
Maybe we could look at some of the pictures that you'll recognize more than we will. It's a solo shot of you in your Phlegmatic, famous or infamous costume. Finally.
Oh, I tell you, when I first got into that costume, I couldn't believe it. Mm-hmm. But although I used to have to go to Karinska's for frequent fittings. And I had to they had to put me on the floor. I had to lie down on the floor so that they could figure out some of the ways of making the costume work. Mm-hmm. And all of this was suede. Mm-hmm. And the tights were heavy, heavy wool. Oh, then there was this wrapping around the top of the head. There was like a mushroom-shaped suede hat. And from it, underneath, fell a suede, like a little curtain, all around this back end, all around the hat to here. Now, underneath that was a white thing that attached here, like this, underneath. So I was totally bound. They were mustard colors, you know, mustard and pale yellows and pale coffee color. I had a shield on my leg that was extra over the tights. Mm-hmm. I had to pull this thing over my leg, which was like a...
Looks like a gladiator shin guard or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that had a blue stripe of blue down the front of it. The colors were very elegant on it, but it was the only costume that I thought really had any sense of beauty. This was all suede here. This was an extra piece of suede over the top. And there was another piece of suede over the top of that. And suede's, although it's light material, it's heavy when it moving in it. It was not a very comfortable costume. And Balanchine said, no, you can't do that and dance in that costume. But, so he cut away a lot of stuff.
Balanchine.
Balanchine.
At the rehearsal or
at
at
the
Karinska's workshop?
At the rehearsal.
I see.
This was just before I went on stage. I remember he was hacking away at things.
How many seasons did you perform it in, approximately, in these full costumes with the set?
Oh, I can tell you exactly. We did it from 1946 until 1950, which the last time we did it was in London. I think we may have done a season here that in 1950. And if so, that was the last time we did it for 2 years. And the reason we didn't do it was because the public didn't like it. And Baum said, you know, this is a dead weight on the programs. And I think that we should dump this ballet. So Balanchine took it out for 2 years. And then he announced at one point, well, I'm putting it back in, and we're going to do it in practice clothes. And that's what we did.
And how great a weight was that off your particular shoulders?
I can't tell you. It was such a great weight off my shoulders. And despite the fact that in rehearsals, I used to rehearse in practice clothes, the very first performance, when we did it without any costumes, was just in practice clothes. And I came out on stage, and I had gotten partway, almost all through that first section, and I suddenly thought, my God, I don't have any clothes on.
How many ballets in the repertory at that time were also done in what we call black and white practice clothes? Many?
Concerto Barocco and
so this was one of the first that he did that.
One of the first. I think maybe this, yeah, very
and Concerto Barocco, at least women had skirts on. They weren't in leotards, right? So it was a little bit more dressy.
Well, just little skirts.
Was the public, do you remember, aghast that they would put a ballet on without sets and costumes? Was that considered shocking to some, say...
you mean for
the Four Temperaments?
When that happened in 1952?
Yeah.
It was a smash hit. The opening night, the audience simply couldn't stop applauding. And it was just, everybody was shocked at the tremendous reaction.
Here's a picture. It's you with your 4 tall girls still in your costume. That's a performance picture, I trust.
It is.
Do you have any reaction to looking at it with those costumes surrounded by those other costumes?
Oh, terrible, isn't it?
Well, I'd like to see it once, actually.
You see the costumes?
Yeah, I'd like to see it played with the costumes once. This is just, if you want to remember what your fellow dancer looked like. Is that actually Bill Dollar? I know it's his movement, but that's himself?
Yeah.
Yes. You mentioned as you worked on it having this sense of Beckett's Godot. Did you ever mention this to Balanchine and say, I kind of think it's this? Or did you not?
I might have, but I don't remember of having said that. I don't think I would have. I just don't think I would have ever said that I was comparing him to anything, especially when he had said to me, just dance.
I didn't have the pleasure of seeing you dance this role, but I did see the revival in the mid-'70s that Balanchine put out in New York City Ballet. And Jean-Pierre Bonfou at that time was doing Phlegmatic.
Oh, was he? Yes.
And some of, I think, what Albert does, I think, is what he did. So maybe Mr. B changed it.
Oh, he did.
Oh, he did.
He did change it, but he couldn't remember it.
I see.
And I wasn't.
He didn't call on you?
Well, I wasn't in
Oh,
America
I
at the
see.
time.
I see.
So I'm sure he would have asked me to come to rehearsal.
And that struck me, some of that thanks, as all of a sudden looking very courtly, especially maybe on Bonfou, who had this French aura, French name, French background. Was there ever any sense that Balanchine gave you that was a court dance moment at all?
You mean this?
Yeah, and the hand on the hip, and the this, and the hands, and the...
He never mentioned. No. Outside of this, I don't think he ever gave me any indication of what he wanted.
So it was just, as you say, the dynamic is what he kept talking about. How slow or fast or soft or hard.
How full the movement was, or how much you gave and put into the movement or took away from it.
And the exit, which you just got to, the exit now that Albert knows is it's like a swoop off.
Oh yeah, it's a very fancy exit. This one.
Yes. Yours was not that.
No.
It was
very. He rose onto half toe, and he walks off with his arms in this position.
And when you were in the company, did anybody ever dance it while you were an able-bodied dancer? No.
No, only one night. One night, it almost happened. I was terribly ill with
I can take those if you want.
bronchitis, and the office kept calling me and saying, "Are you going to be?" And I had a high fever and everything. They said, "Are you going to be able to get out of bed and come to the rehearsal?" And I said, "No, I don't think I can make the rehearsal." They said, "Well, what about the performance?" And I said, "Well, I'll see." So about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I was still, no, I couldn't even get out of bed. So they said, "Well, what are we going to do?" And I said, "I don't know. I'll try my best." And then finally, about 7 o'clock, Eddie Bigelow came over. And he said, "You know, there's nobody to do it." And I said, "Oh, I know. I don't know what to do." And he said, "Well, Balanchine said he'll do it." So I said, "Well, I said he doesn't know it, but I said I'll try to." I said, "Let's see if I can." So they got me dressed and all wrapped up and so forth. And I went over and I got to I could barely get in. I was a wreck. And so Balanchine was there, and he took my temperature. And so when it was 102 temperature, he said, "Oh my God, that's a lot." So he said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "Do you think you can dance it? You think?" And I said, "No, but I'll try." So he said, "Well, do." He said, "Yeah, it'd be wonderful if you did." So I slapped something on my face, I remember, and went down and stood in the wings. And I went on, and I danced it. I don't know how, but I did, and I went right back and got in bed.
So there was no, in your career with that role, second cast understudy ever? Balanchine never had you teach it to anybody?
Oh, not until I was leaving the company.
I see.
And then I taught it to Eddie Villela and to Arthur Mitchell.
Seeing Albert's first run through today, what struck you first was the interior-exterior thing?
It was almost like a show dance, you know, something that one would see on in a review.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It had that kind of outgoing kind of pleasing an audience. And I think it's anything except that. It's really a very interior sense of the movement.